Welcome to another episode of SantorSnakes. On this episode, we are going to bust some myths about telling the difference between venomous and non-venomous snakes.
Thank you all that liked and subscribed.
Now cue that intro. Before we get into the things that we did some research on and came up with that they are all false, we wanted to just kind of give you some general guidelines. If you are out on a trail or at a park or somewhere else where you are coming across a wild snake and you're not sure if it's venomous or non-venomous, the best thing you can do is just leave it alone. I mean, if it's on the trail, stay back. It'll most likely just come off the trail and you won't have to worry about it at all.
Yeah, like a few feet back.
Yeah, just a few feet back and it will probably quickly just scurry along. You know, snakes are not aggressive and are going to attack you or anything like that. They are seriously more afraid of us than we are of them. And as we work our way through this list, there are going to be something on the list that where you were like, I'm totally convinced that this is true. And it's not always true. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There are exceptions to each of these things, and that's what makes them false. So please, please, please don't utilize these tips as facts to tell the difference between venomous and non-venomous.
Yes, and it's true for some snakes and it's false for some.
The first thing that we wanted to bust is the length of the snake. If you see a snake and it is under 2 feet long, it's a venomous snake. And the snakes that are longer than 2 feet, those are harmless, non-venomous snakes. Now, hopefully you guys understand that this one is not true because all venomous snakes and non-venomous snakes as babies and young start off at under 2 feet. So any young snake that you come across is going to be under 2 feet. There are several species of non-venomous snakes like garter snakes, hognose snakes, sand boas. They stay under 2 feet and they are non-venomous. And there are also lots and lots of species of venomous snakes that get longer than 2 feet. A lot of your pit vipers and things are under the 2 feet, but like a gaboon is a viper, but that thing can get 6 feet long. Rattlesnakes up to 8 feet. Cobras 10, 12 feet. So the length of the snake is not really a good indicator of venomous versus non-venomous.
Yes, that is false.
The next myth is about the girth or how big around the snake's body is, saying that a heavy-bodied snake or a fat snake is venomous and the thinner snakes are non-venomous and safe.
And the iguanas are really big, but they're not venomous.
Very true. So like Burmese pythons, anacondas, and lots of other non-venomous snakes are considered heavy-bodied snakes. Bigger around, they eat big prey, but they are non-venomous. And there are also a lot of thin-bodied venomous snakes. You could say that like the whip snakes, which are extremely thin, they do have some venom, but there are coral snakes and lots of other snakes that are thin, little noodle bodies, and they're very venomous. So how big around the snake is definitely not a good indicator on if it's venomous or not venomous. Busted.
False again.
Next on the list is fangs. Of course, venomous snakes have fangs and non-venomous snakes don't have fangs. While that's usually true, there are some exceptions, and if it's a venomous snake, it's most likely not going to be showing you its fangs until it's too late. Like a cottonmouth, for example, will open its mouth, but its fangs are still tucked until it's ready to strike out. There are some non-venomous snakes that have really, really big teeth that look like fangs.
like a green tree python.
Very true. And there are some other snakes, like coral snakes, that are venomous, that don't have fangs. So, busted.
False again.
The next myth is all about heat pits. Heat pits are located between the eyes and the nostrils on lots and lots of different types of snakes. Sometimes it's just one hole, sometimes it's several. But the myth is like, oh, if you see a snake and it has a heat pit on each side, then it is a venomous snake. And non-venomous snakes don't have heat pits. But heat pits are actually indications that what the snake eats is a mammal. It is a warm-blooded creature, and they need that heat sensing to find their prey. Snakes that eat lizards and worms and fish don't need heat pits because what they're looking for isn't warm-blooded. But snakes that eat rodents, a lot of them have heat pits because rodents are warm-blooded.
Yes, we have a snake. Yeah, a couple of them would have heat pits, and they are not poisonous.
They are not venomous. And who are they? We've got Daisy.
Baby girl.
Baby girl. They have heat pits, but theirs are smaller and down both sides. It's very common for pythons to have small heat pits on both sides of their face. And then, of course, there are venomous snakes that don't have heat pits. So, again, busted.
And my pit is not
right.
sweating.
The next one is about their tails. And if they have a rattle, it's a venomous snake. No rattle, non-venomous snakes. Obviously, all rattlesnakes have rattles, right? And if it's got a true rattle, you can go ahead and say, yeah, that's probably a rattlesnake. You should stay away. But there are non-venomous snakes that mimic rattlesnakes.
Most venomous snakes do not have rattles.
That's true.
Most non-venomous snakes rattle their tail.
Right, and without an actual rattle on their tail, it just sounds like a buzzing noise. They'll hit it up against something harder in their environment, and it sounds more like a buzz than a rattle. But they do that same movement, and it's that same type of warning. And there are even some bull snakes that we have heard will make a sound that sounds like a rattlesnake. So you can hear the sound and have some buzzing in the tail movement, and it's not even a rattlesnake. So it's not always a good judge of knowing if the snake is venomous or not.
Yeah, and Princess actually did that one time.
A princess or corn snake, she has definitely buzzed her tail in her enclosure, for sure.
Yes.
Another myth that most people think is true is the scales on the ventral or underside of the snake's tail. So that is the part of the snake's belly past its cloaca, just right there at the end. If it has a single row of scales down the belly there at the end, then it is venomous. If it has two identical rows separated with a line, then it is a harmless, non-venomous snake. Also, not true, and even more importantly, if you're not sure if this snake is venomous or not, you should not be picking it up and looking at its butt to determine if it has one row of scales or two.
Busted.
Some counterexamples would be the species of North American dwarf boas. They are non-venomous and have a single row of scales. Our Kenyan sand boa, Sweetie, she has only one row of scales down her tail, just like the rest of her belly, also non-venomous. And there are, of course, venomous snakes that have the double row, like coral snakes. The next myth is pretty exclusive, we think, to cottonmouth, also known as the water moccasin, versus just a common water snake, in how they move and float in the water. It's about how a venomous snake will have its entire body floating on the surface of the water, where a true water snake, most of the body will be under, and it's just its head that's moving along above. but that's so unreliable.
The non-venomous water snakes, they can be in shallow water. They can be poked up on a rock or some coal.
Yeah, some type of plant or something, a piece of wood or something to help their body stay elevated and at the surface. And on the flip side of that, there could be a venomous water moccasin that just ate a big meal and their body is now lower in the water. So it's not a reliable way to tell the difference between those two types of snakes. So we're going to call that one busted. So the next couple of things that we're going to talk about have to do with the color of the snakes. The first of that being the brightness of the snake's skin. If it's bright, it's venomous. If it's dull, it's non-venomous.
There are lots of non-venomous snakes what are bright colored, like milk snakes, jungle carpet pythons. Just to name a few.
Yes, absolutely. And then on the flip side of that, when they say that, oh, all the dull colored snakes are non-venomous and non-harmful, that's not true either, because a lot of venomous snakes blend into their environment with lots of dull colors. The first one that comes to mind is a rattlesnake. They have lots of grays and tans and browns that just perfectly blend in and very venomous. So, myth busted.
Busted.
There are a lot of counterexamples to this next one, but a lot of people will say that if it is a solid color snake, it's non-venomous, but if it has lots of colors, then it is a venomous snake. Carter, what are some examples of that one?
Almost all of our snakes are a bunch of colors, but
Right.
they're not venomous.
True. I mean, corn snakes, Kenyan sand boas, boa constrictors, milk snakes, king snakes, they all have 2, 3, 4, 5 different variations, and they're not venomous. Single colored snakes, I mean, we do have one, Raina, she's solid black. But, I mean, you can get solid black cobras, solid white cobras, and many other species of venomous snakes that are a solid color. So, busted.
Busted again.
The last one about the color of the snake, I'm sure all of you guys are aware, is red to yellow, kill a fellow, red to black, venom lack. And while that works most of the time, especially here in North America, that is not always true. Yes, coral snakes, red and yellow, touch most of the time, but not all the time. And milk snakes and king snakes that have those same colorations, it's the red touches the black. But there are exceptions. There are some coral snakes that lack that combination, and there are other snakes that are non-venomous that have the exact same type of pattern as a coral snake.
Yes, and that is a rhyme.
It's a widely used rhyme, and a lot of people take it as fact because it rhymes, and it's been around a long time. But it's not true all the time, so it's not good to use.
Yeah.
All right, we saved the most common myths about venomous versus non-venomous snakes for last, and those are the shape of the eye and the shape of the head. So we'll talk about the shape of the eye first. If it is an elliptical pupil and it's a venomous snake, it's a round pupil, then it's a harmless non-venomous snake. If you are close enough to see what shape pupil it has, you are probably too close. But there are lots of snakes that are perfectly safe, harmless, that have elliptical shaped pupils, and that is because they are typically nocturnal. If they're out at night, they have elliptical shaped eyes, like cats. Out at night, elliptical shaped eyes. If you're out during the day, you're diurnal, round shaped pupils, like us. Some counter examples: ball pythons, boa constrictors, elliptical eyelids, non-venomous. Coral snakes, cobras, round pupils, very venomous. So, myth busted.
Busted.
The last one that we mentioned is the shape of the head. Oh, if it has a triangle-shaped head, it's a venomous snake. If it's got a rounded or spoon-shaped head, then it's non-venomous. Not really true. There are so many examples of non-venomous snakes that have triangle-shaped heads. Cuddles our boa constrictor, triangle-shaped head, non-venomous. Coral snakes, rounded, spoon-shaped head, very venomous. People say that it's because of the venom glands needing space as to why venomous snakes have a triangle-shaped head. And yes, obviously there needs to be some room for some venom glands, but it's not always a good indication of venom versus non-venom. So please don't use that myth. Also, busted.
Busted.
In general terms, guys, it's so dangerous to get close enough to a snake to even look at some of these things, like the true shape of its head, the shape of its eyelids, if it has one band of scales down its tail, or if it's two, how fat it is, or any of these things. You are already probably too close to that snake to determine that kind of stuff. So just leave snakes alone as much as you possibly can. If you've got a snake in your house or on your property that you need to be removed, just call somebody that you know, get on a Facebook group and find somebody that can come, call the city, whatever you need to do, but please don't kill snakes just because you think it might be venomous. And whatever you do, please do not say, oh, it's probably non-venomous, and pick it up. Just leave it alone.
You know what I want to say about all of these?
What do you want to say about all these myths? Ay, ay, ay. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you for learning with us.
And we'll catch you on the next one.